All right, hello everyone. My name is Mike. I am here from the Los Angeles Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Center. Thank you. I have not spoken to a crowd this big in like a decade, so good luck to all of you. This might not go well. So I wanted to take this chance to introduce myself and the type of work that I do. We had just heard from Sophia how our rights, the rights of our patients, they're being dismantled. And so this is a really important time for us to fight, and we're going to talk about that. But I wanted to tell you about how it's affected me. We're all healthcare workers, and we don't always get to see what's happening behind the scenes, but I'm a care manager, and that's all I get to see is exactly what happens behind the scenes. And my program is a Los Angeles County program. It was funded through federal dollars. It's called Medical Care Coordination, and it's for care management teams for our clinic, specifically for patients who have HIV/AIDS. Since the beginning of this year, we have had 2 huge cuts to our budgets. We have lost 10 positions. We started the year off with 6 care teams. This is care management teams. It's an RN, LVN, medical social worker. Started with 6, we're down to 4. I started the year off with 600 patients. Now I'm at 980 patients. And the patients I have, they are all, for the most part, medically and oftentimes psychosocially vulnerable patients who have difficulty accessing their medications, accessing insurance. These patients are unhoused. They don't have food. And so the purpose of this program is for us to help catch those patients before they fall through the cracks. And with all these cuts, it's gonna happen. Patients are gonna fall through the cracks. And a lot of it is because our healthcare system is purposefully complicated and inaccessible. And so what this is gonna mean is that we are gonna have more sick patients. We're gonna have higher transmission rates of HIV. We're gonna have higher rates of drug-resistant strains of HIV. And within the community and within everywhere, anyone who is sexually active, sex just got a lot more dangerous. And the current administration, they know exactly what they're doing. They know that this is gonna be death. Patients are gonna die. Patients are gonna be homeless. And they also know that this is disproportionately gonna be affecting queer people, people of color, socioeconomically disadvantaged patients. And I did also want to share just a brief experience I had with a patient when I first started this job. I called this patient. He doesn't have a home. He's living out of his car. He's been using meth for 10 years. And his strain of HIV is so drug resistant that he is on the last possible cocktail of medications. There's nothing else left. And so if he falls through the cracks and he doesn't take his medications, he's gonna develop resistance. He's not gonna have anything left. But I got to talk to him. And as a care manager, I have time that the providers, people in the clinic don't have. I got to talk to him. I got to let him know that I'm gonna be there for him, whatever he decides to do. And as of a couple months ago, his viral load is undetectable. And yeah. And I spoke to him a couple weeks ago. He is pretty much next on the list to get a home. And this isn't a savior thing. This is us picking up the scraps of a diseased healthcare system. I need to take a drink of water. So it's a lot of heavy stuff, but I'm so happy to be here. I'm really happy to be around all these like-minded people. It really helps to be around all of you, to have hope when there isn't an abundance of hope. And so we appreciate you all engaging. We are gonna have a discussion in about an hour, but first we are gonna hear from some incredible panelists. But first, I'm gonna introduce my co-moderator, Marcela Calvillo.
Good morning, NUHW. How are we feeling today? Amazing, I love that. So, hi everyone, good morning. My name is Maricela Calvillo. I am a licensed clinical social worker with Southern California, Kaiser Permanente. And yes, I just have to stress this one more time. I was part of that 6.5, 7-month strike. Yes. So seeing everyone's beautiful faces today definitely brought back a lot of memories, a lot of trauma, but it's nice to be sitting here today. So it's truly an honor to be up here on stage with Mike. Thank you, Mike, for everything you shared. It inspires me even more to keep fighting, for all of us to keep fighting. And it's also an honor to be up here on stage with our 3 amazing panelists that we will hear from in a minute. So let me introduce them briefly, and then I'll let them take over. We have Angelica Salas from the Executive Director of the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. Welcome. We have Lorena Gonzalez, President of the California Federation of Labor Unions. Yes. And we have, last but not least, we have Jane Kim, California Director of the Working Families Party. So it's really, really a blessing to be up here today with a lot of individuals that supported us through this strike. So I just want to say a huge thank you from myself and from everyone here that was able to really talk to you on those strike lines. So here's how our panel conversation will work today. So first, our panelists will talk a bit about the work that they do. Then I'll ask them a few questions, and this will be followed by a Q&A session when a lot of you here can pose a question to them, and I'll talk about the instructions on that end once we're getting closer. After the Q&A, we will be able to have a lot of discussions on our tables, and then we'll be followed by a survey, okay? So it's gonna be a lot of fun. So I wanna definitely hear everyone's voices towards the end. So let's get started. Now it's the time to allow our panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll start off with Angelica. Please tell us about your work and the organizations you lead.
Wonderful. So my name is Angelica Salas. I'm the Executive Director of CHIRLA, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. Our organization's mission is to create a just society fully inclusive of immigrants and to advance the human, the civil, the labor, and the constitutional rights of immigrants and refugees in this country. And maybe before I begin to talk about what I do, I really just want to extend my gratitude to each and every one of you for everything you do. I want to tell you that I have a mom who often has to go into the hospital, loved ones, and every time I just really want to say that you, as the healthcare workers, often the doctors aren't around, but you are. You're the people who hold people's hands. You're the people who listen to what they need. And I'm always so thankful. And every time I walk away, I always have to thank those people who spend the most time with the patients, and that's you. So thank you so, so very much for what you do.
Thank you.
The organization was founded in 1986 to advance its mission. And so what we do, we're an organizing organization. We have now over 52,000 dues-paying members in our organization. Our organization, we organize workers, immigrant workers, domestic workers, day laborers, landscapers, individuals who work construction, different types of jobs. We organize students. We work in 18 high schools throughout Los Angeles, and then we work in 33 college campuses throughout the state, always working with immigrants, or in the case of our students, the children of immigrants. We believe that everything we do stems from the organizing we do. So we work statewide, and we always say our people do have a voice. They are not voiceless. They have a very loud voice. Our task as organizers is to create the on-ramps and the platforms and to give them the microphone so that they can say what they need. They can talk about what is impacting their lives, but most importantly, they can demand from their representatives, because they are constituents, from their representatives, from those who have decision-making power, to actually respond to their needs and to listen to their solutions. So fundamental to everything we do at CHIRLA, it's about organizing. From there, we advocate with our community at the local, at the state, and at the federal level for changes in immigration policies. And we have transformed with our immigrant community, with incredible champions in labor, with our allies, with our labor partners, this state, the state of California. I started at CHIRLA in 1995. This year is going to be my 30th year at CHIRLA, and it is my 30th year. And when I started, this was the most anti-immigrant state. It was the least progressive state in the entire country. We have transformed this country in order for us to actually be challenged by the federal administration for who we are and what we have built. There's so much more we have to do in this state, but we should be very proud of that. So we passed in the state of California driver's license, in-state tuition, financial aid for our students, healthcare for all. There's still more work to be done there, but independent of your immigration status, you can own a business in the state of California. We did all that, and the list is so much longer than that. And so our organization changes policies. We are proudly a sanctuary state because our people have fought to ensure that their public safety isn't endangered vis-a-vis ICE. And then finally, we provide legal services. So we are one of the largest immigration legal service providers in the state of California, and we're the largest DACA legal services provider in the entire country. We believe deeply in that it's both about responding directly to people, but also it's about engaging people in knowing their rights. So our community education is all about knowing your rights, knowing the resources that are available to you and to your family, but it's also about your responsibility. And part of your responsibility is to be civically engaged, to organize, to fight back, to stand up for your community. So it's about standing up for yourself, for your family, but it's also standing up for your community. So participate in a lot of getting out the vote work, educating our folks about the issues, standing in solidarity with our labor partners, and standing in solidarity with all communities that are equally marginalized. And lastly, and I'll finish here, we run the Los Angeles Rapid Response Network that actually works to respond to all the raids and all the enforcement that's happening. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a little while, but just to state that we believe deeply that immigrants are already part of our community. We belong here, and what we're fighting to do is to be fully recognized as the American citizens that we already are by our actions. Now it has to be recognized by law. Thank you.
Woo. Thank you, Angelica. Lorena?
So my name is Lorena Gonzalez. I am the president of the California Federation of Labor Unions. That's all 1,300 local unions throughout California, including NUHW. 2.3 million workers. And I don't say that loosely, including NUHW, because unfortunately, there was close to 20 years, I think, Sally, I could get that wrong, 15 years at least, where all of you were not part of the Federation, not because you didn't want to be, but because of some of those things that were talked about earlier. When I came into the Federation a few years ago, Sal and I had a discussion and a discussion with Sophia as well. And my belief is if we talk about solidarity, solidarity is solidarity. I don't like everybody in my family. That's okay. You all don't have to like every other union in the Federation, and every other union doesn't have to like you. Our job is to stand together because bottom line is, and you know this, when you're in a hospital or you're at Kaiser, you have all these other workers and they're facing the same boss, and we have more in common than we have apart. So I'm proud that NUHW is back into the Labor Federation. We at the Federation, if you don't know, and if you do, I'm sorry, some of you might be involved. Are many of you involved in your central labor councils? Anyone? Some of you, I know.
Ignacio.
So I used to head a central labor council in San Diego, and then I was a legislator and came back to labor. So the central labor councils are like the small federations locally, and then the state Federation of Labor is our state, and then the national is the AFL-CIO. And we have everything in the Federation, everything from pilots to janitors to teachers to healthcare workers to construction workers, firefighters, you name it. If there's any job, if they have a union, they're in the Federation. And so it's a organization that works really hard, and my job is fun, to try to keep everybody exercising solidarity, because we talk a lot about solidarity, but solidarity is a verb, really, right? It's an action. It's not just, we like workers. It's what am I doing for my brothers and sisters? And so a lot of what we do is that. In politics, which can be difficult because some of our unions, of course, are super progressive, right? Like you all, I kind of would say most of you. We have some that are super progressive. We have some that are kind of progressive. We have some that are pretty conservative. We have some that you want to just close your eyes and say, okay, they're still workers. But at the end of the day, we try to get everybody on the same page, and we talk about politics in kind of words that everybody can understand. And so I often say, like, for example, that not every Democrat is our friend, not every Republican has to be our enemy. They usually are, but that's a different situation. So we have to reach out to everybody and try to ensure that we're always thinking about how an elected official, how a proposition, how somebody is affecting working class folks. That's what this is about. Now, my job has gotten easier over the last few years, right? Because people are seeing more and more, as we always say, that the billionaire class and those people who bootlick the billionaire class have whatever they have, but all of us, I don't care if you're an immigrant farm worker or if you're a construction worker, electrician, if you're a firefighter, if you're a pilot, you have more in common with each other than you do with that billionaire class. And so our solidarity has become easier because we're seeing that divide more. Unfortunately, it's made it harder as well. So what do? We run campaigns, right? We come together, have a big convention. You guys show up, you vote who you want. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you go off on your own and do yours, but we try to get everybody on the same page to elect like-minded candidates and propositions. Like right now, we're doing Prop 50. Everybody's voting for Prop 50, right? All right. Just a side note, we have a union-wide phone bank. Every union on Monday, and Julie Sue is hopping up. It's virtual, so if you want to make some calls, easiest calls, anyone that's ever phone banked, easiest calls you've ever made. People are like, yeah, we got to get them out to vote, but it's a good phone bank. We took the Republican Union members out just so. It's really easy phone bank. So we do that, right? And we also introduce and push legislation that affects all unions and help our individual unions push their issues as well. So like right now at the state level, our big priority bills that are sitting on the governor's desk are one, is dealing with the right to organize, AB 288, basically because, and we'll talk about this later, the NLRB is broken. It has been for a long time, but now it's completely broken and might be ruled unconstitutional. So we think we should be able to utilize PERB for private sector workers. And we think we have 100 scholars who say this could be done. We should be doing this. And that ability to give Californians the real right to organize is on the governor's desk. And then the other thing we work on, or we have been working on the last couple of years, and I know we're going to be working with you all closer on this, is the role of artificial intelligence and technology in the workplace. So we have been pushing over the last few years on all kinds of things to try to get guardrails for AI and tech in the workplace. And we know, of course, in healthcare, it's a big threat. It's already seeping in, and that it's not just an issue of safety. It's not just an issue of privacy, but those are really important issues. But it's an issue of jobs too. And we're going to fight like hell to make sure every job is kept with a human being. Bosses should have souls, workers should have souls, and we should not be replaced by computers. So we have a bill on that as well on the governor's desk. And finally, the last thing we kind of do is organizing, right? Supporting all of you when you organize new workplaces, support you when you're in contract campaigns. Some of you, I'm sure, I know, I got arrested with during the last Kaiser strike. That's my job. I get arrested a lot. No, I try to have a limit on it because you can actually get in trouble. I mean, most of the time they say that's okay, but if you have too many of them active at the same time, you can actually really, and with this president, I was like, I'm done for the year. And then I think Sophia emailed me and said, you want to come get arrested with our Kaiser therapist? And I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. So I was not done for the year. But now I'm done for the year. Unless you go on strike again. And so what we try to do is highlight each individual workplace, what's going on with the entire labor movement. We've been really practicing lately and really trying to ensure that our individual needs, despite everything happening on the federal level, despite how distracted we can be, and I always tell people I wake up in the middle of the night, right, and I scroll through social media and I'm like, oh, like what is happening, right? Despite all that, push that aside. We still have to organize. We still have to get good contracts. We still have to fight for each other. And our priority will continue to be on those prizes because this too shall pass. We will still be here. We will still fight. And we will continue to ensure that each of you can have respect in a decent form of living. So that's what I do.
Thank you. All right, Jane, you're up.
Good morning. And good morning. And I just want to thank Mike for actually recentering the conversation today. And actually, I'm going to set aside my pitch for Working Families Party and start with what everyone in this room does, which is that you all are on the front lines of addressing the failures of policies in this country. And so the story of the shrinking workforce in our hospitals, the fact that our health outcomes are dependent on how much money we have or what kind of job we have or who you know or fortunately get to meet, whether you live or you die or how you get to live your life, is a sad failure of where we're in this country where capitalism and greed has just gone amok. And for those of us that have been in hospitals, I spent 3 months in an ICU with my father every single day. I got to see the work that you did every single day. And as unions go out on the field on Prop 50 to fight for a party that doesn't always fight for us, you are the credible messengers to Californians because you are with us in our most intimate moments, and we see you through your action, what your values are, and who you are fighting for. And even if this party doesn't always fight for us when we try to win back the House next year, we have to keep fighting to make sure that those in governance are accountable to the workers and to the people. And that brings me to Working Families Party. First of all, I want to thank National Union of Healthcare Workers for coming in from the get-go to invest in a party for workers. So WFP, that deserves applause, sorry. Working Families Party started in 1998 in the state of New York, actually as a party of labor and community. And New York has this very interesting system called fusion voting. Are folks familiar with this? So it's a remnant of the mid-1800s when we actually had a multi-party system in this country. And candidates could accept the nomination of multiple parties. In fact, JFK was the last president to accept two-party nominations when he ran for president. So the New York City mayor's race, which some of us are following, very confusing, right? Zohran Mamdani won the Democratic primary, so how is Andrew Cuomo still running in the general? Because we have something called fusion voting. So Andrew already kind of saw maybe I'm not gonna win because maybe people don't like me, so he accepted a party nomination, I think in April or May in advance, to secure his position in the New York General. And Eric Adams also decided, like, I'm not gonna win in June, so he already went ahead and got another party endorsement. Zohran also has two party nominations going into November. And so it allows this multi-party system where there's no spoiler. So when I worked for Senator Sanders in 2020 and we were going to New York State, we were telling all the Bernie supporters, you're gonna see his name twice, but we want you to vote for him under the WFP line instead of the Democratic Party line. And it's a way to show parties how many voters actually support a workers' agenda first. So we are here in California. We don't have that system. It's actually illegal in the state because once Democrats and Republicans started building up power, they made fusion voting illegal in 48 states across this country. But we are in this moment in time where the first time in my life, we are seeing a dissolution of this two-party system. And it's not applause or not, it is because these two parties have been captured by billionaire corporations. And sometimes they fight for us, but if central to your strategy of winning is billionaire corporate dollars, then they will never always stand with working people. And that is what Working Families Party is trying to build in this country. We are building a corporate-free political party that stands with workers 100% of the time. And we want WFP to be led by all of you. We're really lucky that NUHW came on, and Michael Soto is our vice chair at Working Families Party here in California. And I want to acknowledge Astrid and Ladrian, Sal and Sophia for participating in, so many meetings about process as we figure out how do we build this party where workers and working people get to make decisions first. And we believe that government is not the problem, it is the prize. It is what working people should fight for. We should be governing. We believe that we can govern. And so there are 40 million Californians, 20 million that actually vote regularly. We believe, or I believe, that there's at least 1 million Californians that are willing to invest in this vision. They believe that working people can run, can win, and that we can secure governing power for the majority and not just the few billionaires. And just like all the dues-paying organizations that labor represents, we want to be a party that is built off of not billionaire funders, but working people's dues. And so if we can find 1 million Californians that are willing to invest $1 a month in WFP, imagine what we could do with $1 million political PAC a month to elect more working people to office. We want to be the party that is identifying supporting workers to run for school board, to run for city council, to run for state legislature, and then when you are there to help you actually govern so we can uplift all of us. And one thing I will just say in this moment of immense chaos and despair, and waking up every day and feeling the weight of the work that we have to engage in to fight for our communities and our people, as Mike talked about. is that I was reminded yesterday that actually this is exhausting for the other side too. It is exhausting. They are in space of such scarcity and fear, where as they do the ICE raids in our community, as they strip Medicare from people who don't have anything, right? Imagine the amount of like just the fear that you are feeling to want to have that much control because they know they are losing. They know they are losing. They may have dollars on their side, but they don't have spirit and love and joy and abundance, and they are scared that we will recognize that. That is why they wake up every morning trying to push us down as far as possible so we don't realize how much there is in the world for all of us. Because once we all wake up every morning believing that, we will win every single day. And that is the fight that WFP wants to be with all of you. So thank you for investing in us, and we want to win together.
Thank you. All right. Well, let's get on to our first question. The first question I have is actually for you, Angelica. So every administration, including the first Trump administration, has conducted immigration enforcement. What is different about immigration enforcement during the second Trump presidency, and what can we do to stand with immigrants whose rights are being violated?
First, what I want to do in answering that question is I want to pan out away from just the Trump administration, both 1.0 and 2.0, and pan out and let you know that there are 14 million people, and you heard right, 14 million people who are undocumented in this country. The majority of the people who are undocumented in this country who don't have legal status, that means that they don't have any ability to really be recognized, even though they're working, living, building families. The number has just significantly grown. It also includes some people who have these quasi work permits, but they actually have major expiration dates. Individuals like that are, for example, are documented individuals and people with TPS. That's about 2.1 million people in this country. The numbers are huge, and they have grown over time because we have failed. And I think this whole, and I would say here it's Democrat and Republicans, have failed to actually use their political power in order to pass a legalization program that would recognize people who have lived in this country for so long. I came to this country as an unaccompanied child to be reunited with my mom and my dad who were living in this country undocumented. My mom, a garment worker, my dad, a construction worker. It took my mom being yanked out of her workplace, her garment factory, where she was detained alongside my uncles and aunts who were working in that factory. The garment factory was raided. She was deported back to Mexico alongside all her co-workers and my other family members. And it wasn't until she came back, and she came back in a trunk of a car, and I got to see my mom arrive home. And I never understood. See, I didn't understand immigration policy. I didn't understand immigration laws. I just knew deep in my heart that something was so wrong in terms of what was happening. And I also saw my mom is a tough lady. I mean, I'm still scared of her, and I'm 54. And, but to see her, to see her, and she was in a different, just to see her so sad, to see her so beaten, it really, it shook me, it changed me, and it really always had in me, what is happening? Why do we have to go through this? Because the majority of my family was undocumented. And we're living through those, that fear of La Migra, the raids, et cetera. But in 1986, when there was a mass legalization program that legalized 2.7 million people, many of my family members legalized. we had legalized just a couple of years before, but I know the difference between not having documents and having documents, getting a green card, and then taking the oath of citizenship and becoming a citizen of the United States. It changes your life. You live free, you breathe free. It means that you're not exploited in the workplace, that you're not told, hey, my mom's a garment worker. I was the oldest. I knew how to, I did her calculations. And I remember one of her bosses kept trying to short her on her pay. And I'm like, no, this doesn't add up. This just doesn't add up. She's not getting paid. You're cheating her from her wages. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're talking about. No, I know how to add, and this is wrong. And she's like, so what are you going to do about it? And that's what this exploitation and the way that people get cheated out of their wages and out of the respect that they deserve as workers because they don't have status. And so my work at CHIRLA is definitely to stop all this horrible enforcement, but my main point in the fight of our organization is those 14 million people are allowed to live in this country free with full legal status and a path to citizenship. That's the job. So enforcement, unfortunately, because we haven't had legalization in this country, and again, here we have both parties have failed us. What has happened is that we have seen enforcement. And so enforcement, I have responded to worksite raids too many times to count. I have talked to families over all these years who have been impacted by detention, deportation. And again, things have changed. We actually advanced policies and actually even sued the Department of Homeland Security multiple times. So you will see, CHIRLA against almost every single Department of Homeland Security director because we have sued for our rights. What has happened in Trump and moving forward, in Trump 1.0, prior to that, we had actually won some major litigation in order to have rights in the, to shut down detention centers. And if those detention centers existed, that there would be certain conditions that needed to be met. We also had dealt with the idea of racial profiling and excessive use of force. We also had sensitive locations, which meant you can't go to a hospital, you can't go to a clinic, you can't go to a school, a courtroom, and these are considered a church. You can't go to these sensitive locations. What did Trump do? In Trump 1.0, he actually did a lot of horrible things against immigrant workers, including, and I remind you, family separation, where we had children who were actually separated from their families and incarcerated as children. Many of those children still we don't have. Can't find their parents. Even to this day, he shut down the border. He did horrible, horrible things, but what did we do? We fought back in the streets and in the courts, and we won in the courts. That was Trump 1.0. Now, Trump 2.0, he realized, and his administration, they realized, wait a second, now, who fought with these immigrant communities? Was their immigrant rights organizations. It was their labor unions. And this time around, they're like, we're not just going after the immigrant community, we're actually also going after their organizations that defend them, the labor unions that defend them. So it is very important that we all understand that this time around, not only are they just trying to destroy immigrant lives, they're also trying to destroy the lives of, trying to destroy the organizations that stand up and defend them. That's important for me to let you know. And how do they do that? They try to defund you or take away your money, even the money that they owe you. They also, at least in the case of CHIRLA, also going after our institutions, creating all sorts of false accusations and just really trying to destroy us. But we are still here, we're still fighting, we're not giving up, no intimidation, because this is our fight, and we're gonna keep fighting Because if we're not fighting in this moment, what's the point of us existing, right? So, but a little bit more about that, and then I'll conclude. So what's also happening is they are ignoring the law. So I need you to understand that between January and June, they kept, they were enforcing. But what did we all do? We did know your rights. What are our rights under the Constitution? If they knock on your door and if they don't have a judicial warrant, don't open the door. It was working. We did mass know your rights around the country to the point that Tom Holman said we were getting in the way. Like we were interrupting their business, right? They're educating them, and we're not able to arrest them. So in June, they changed tactics. And and then it started here in Los Angeles. And they're saying, we're going to ignore the law. We're going to ignore constitutional rights. We're going to ignore that we shouldn't have, racial profiling. Our laws haven't changed. Our Constitution hasn't changed. What has changed is that they are being lawless. They are making a decision to ignore all the rights that we have as people. And so mass arrests, extrajudicial, no warrant. And then what they also understood is we stood up our rapid response, and the whole purpose of that rapid response is to, yes, get to the site, but most importantly, get to the people so we can defend them in court and get them back to their families. That's the whole point. So what they did is they started shutting down the access to detention centers, so we couldn't go and represent individuals. They completely shut down the system. So arrest them illegally, don't provide them due process, and force individuals to stay in these detention centers that are actually they're private corporations, Core Civic, Geo. These are all billionaire companies, right? And what they want to do is no access to counsel in order for people every night to basically, every night that they're in detention, they're earning dollars. So keep them away from their lawyers, any representation, et cetera. It is horrific what's happening right now. They also ignored sensitive locations, so they are going near our schools. That happened yesterday. They are going into our churches. They are going into courtrooms, and you see the horrible manner in which they're conducting this. And then they're going into our streets. They shut down the border completely, so refugees, asylum seekers can't come in unless they're white. Right? White South Africans, but everybody else, because they have a very clear, they articulate this. They don't want people of color to come into the country because they want to stop the beautiful multiracial democracy that exists in this country. And so what are we doing about all this? Well, we're taking to the streets. We are fighting in the courtrooms. And we are fighting and fighting each and every day because we're not going to take this and this treatment against our people. Excessive use of force. No law enforcement agency would get away with what's happening with ICE. And this is where we have broken bones, broken legs, broken wrists, broken backs, people who are injured, people who are dying in detention center. They're treating us like animals, and we are human beings, and we are going to take that human dignity that we have and use it as catalytic to fight against this atrocious and absolutely illegal, immoral government. And so for me, what's happening right now is shameful, unacceptable, and we have to fight in every way because this isn't about immigrants. They're using us to figure out how far they can go with not providing you counsel, with not providing you any level of no accountability. You see it, they came in LA, then they went to DC, and there it wasn't just about immigrants, it was about everybody. So know your rights, we do have rights. If we live in this country, we have rights. Too many good people in America have actually fought for those rights to exist. We still have rights in the workplace. We still have rights in the streets. We have to make those rights valid because no right is real until you exercise and you fight for them to be real in your life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Angelica. All right, Lorena, so this question's for you. So as president of the California Labor Federation and a badass, I'm just gonna say that now. Can you give us a big picture overview of how Trump's executive orders and actions to undercut the National Labor Relations Act have emboldened employers and harmed workers in our state? Also, we're all used to Republicans trying to harm workers in our state. So how are, I guess, but how are Trump's actions different now?
So a lot of what Angelica was saying is true for us as well, right? He came in, we're used to, in a change of administration, Republicans doing things differently than Democrats. We saw a harsh reality of differences because, of course, we had, and I will say time and time again, the most pro-union president of the history of America prior to Trump. I mean, Joe Biden, I don't care if people are upset at him or don't like certain things, that is true. He was by far the most pro-union and had the most pro-union NLRB in history. And what Trump did is he came in immediately issuing executive orders, right? He did the Doge thing, which cleared away a bunch of workers and inappropriately fired federal workers. Those are workers, by and large, that were protected by union contracts, but just went and immediately fired folks. Of course, we've been fighting back in the courts against that. He then issued executive orders, and basically the way I like to tell people, it would be like an employer looking at you, you come in, and saying, today I've decided this collective bargaining agreement is torn up, does not exist. You don't have a union. We're not gonna collect the dues and give it to the union. We're not gonna allow you to file grievances. We're not gonna let you do anything. It is over. He did that throughout every federal agency that had unions and is continuing to. Again, we're fighting in the courts, but that is different than we've seen in previous administrations. We're used to them appointing bad people to the NLRB, people who are employer-sided. However, what he did is he fired an NLRB member, Gwen Wilcox. That is supposed to not happen. The norms, not that they're norms anymore, right? The norms and the law said the NLRB is an independent agency. So although a Republican could come in and appoint somebody when there was a vacancy, when their term was up, you weren't previously allowed to just go in and fire a pro-union NLRB member. He did that. That got upheld by the Supreme Court. So that's different, right? He we still don't have a quorum at the National Labor Relations Board. What does that mean? That means employers can be empowered to do exactly what he did at the federal level. We already have seen some employers use a strategy, basically, because there are two things going on, right? Our regional offices of the NLRB are understaffed. A lot of folks, because they fired a bunch of people, they don't have the ability to take on the caseload. And then even if you get a positive ruling, the employer, of course, can appeal it all the way to the NLRB. If there's no quorum at the NLRB, then the employer's like, well, I guess there's no union. That happened. Trader Joe's did that to a unit that had overwhelmingly unionized, and at the lower levels it had been recognized. They just appealed it up and said, well, there's no quorum, so there can be no enforcement of that. What we are fearful of is employers actually taking the next step and just tearing it up. And we're seeing little bits of that, and I always warn people, Loyola Marymount University last week, it's a Jesuit Catholic university in California, had recognized and was bargaining with a union that had filed and gotten recognition through card check, but that they had recognized previously. They stopped negotiations and said, we no longer recognize you. We think there's a religious exemption. Because they know that the federal government, we find this in some of the religious hospitals, right? We've had this issue come up and usually we win on it, but they know that this federal government, that they will win. And the atrocious thing, and those of you who have ever worked at a Catholic hospital can kind of understand this, the atrocious thing is, and this is why I'm so outraged as a Catholic, is a tenet of the Catholic faith is collective bargaining. Like, it is actually, there's nothing that is in contrary to the religion to have unionized workers at a Catholic institution. And take that another level, the Jesuits in particular have always been very friendly and very pro-union. In fact, been arrested with us, done all of that. So it is, but they're just another employer. And they're doing things that they know that this administration will not buck them on. And so we are fearful that this will continue to happen. That's why we passed the bill that's sitting on the governor's desk right now that I talked about to try to take it back then. If there is no federal real right to unionize or to have your collective bargaining agreement or to enforce your collective bargaining agreement, that means there has to be a state right to do it. That means California can use their police powers to enforce that. That's the legal argument we're going to make. There is no federal preemption. And we're ready. We're hopeful the governor will sign it. He told me he was worried about cost. I was like, well, you should see the cost if they start tearing up those collective bargaining agreements, because everything will friggin' shut down, right? Like, see how much that'll cost. And so we're ready. We're ready for the first case. It's going to get enjoined and sued right away. We know this, but we're ready. We've been talking to attorneys, and we are going to do this. He is also allowing court cases to go forward that challenge the constitutionality of the National Labor Relations Act. And it's creating kind of a unique situation for us because, all right, that's why we wrote this bill in California, by the way. Fine, it's unconstitutional. Better for us. We'll just get the same rules that we've passed in California for farm workers and public employees. Card check, binding arbitration, there's, okay, fine. Forget it at the national level. But the problem is that our brothers and sisters, workers in Alabama, deserve the same rights that we have here in California. And if they find it unconstitutional, we're gonna have a hard time enforcing those rights for any worker that's in a right-to-work state. So that's a lot of what we're facing, but we are fighting back. That is the end thing. At the end of the day, they can't force you to work. And I want you to think about that. We have something that they need, our labor, and withholding our labor, whether legal or illegal, is always going to be an option for us. And so we have to continue to say, you can fight, and we will fight back. And we have a lot of tools at our disposal to do that because we are not going away. We are not slave labor. We will not be slave labor. We will not be forced to work. And you will not be able to continue to operate a country without working people.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorena. All right, Jane. So this question's for you. So in a political landscape shaped by increasing repression and rollback of rights, how can we balance defensive fights against authoritarian policies with advancing a proactive vision for economic and racial justice?
So as I talked about how exhausting it is also for the other side to fight on to hold on to this power that they believe that they deserve, and that they're scared in a world where they have to share all of it. I was just thinking about how even the stage that we're sitting on would not have happened 20 years ago. And so the fights that we have won, we have continued to hold on to the advances that we've made for a more equitable society. But ultimately, so much of the fights that we engage in at the governance level is ultimately about greed and capital. So how many healthcare workers do hospitals hire now? And how much do we pay those healthcare workers to serve our communities? And how many hospitals do we even have, and where do we put them? And do we put them in rural areas where they don't pencil out for capitalism versus the types of services that we provide and who can afford to pay for them, and therefore those are the services that we increase to up our bottom line. And so in this fight, that is where government plays a role, right? In figuring out what creates a healthier and more balanced and more equitable society. And this is why, again, coming back to the work that you do on the front lines, where you are actually addressing the failures of these policies and the decisions that government is currently making, is that we need to change who's in government. You don't have a choice. You must meet the people that have been left behind by our policies. You must serve, whether it is the lack of equity around the economics, the healthcare system, et cetera. That's who we need in government. People who can't put themselves in gated communities and not see the people that have been left behind and the choices they're making so that they can concentrate wealth in their communities. And as we change that again, step by step at the school board level, at the city council level, at the state legislature, that is when we can win. I do believe that government is an important institution and that we should fight for it. We should fight to be in it. We should fight to lead it. We should fight to represent our people. That again, that this is an institution worth being a part of and worth saving, because it is ultimately how we will govern as a community that can all live together. And that's what we want to be. And so I hope you run. I mean that very seriously, because we don't have enough good people running for office. We need to grow that pipeline. In an age of cynicism, where it is easier for us to critique and say, this is why it's not working, this is not why it's working, is to figure out how we can be the solution to make it work for all of us.
Thank you. All right. So this question is actually for all three of you. So with people feeling overwhelmed, as many of us in this room know, right? There's been a lot of attacks in the front lines, from labor rights to immigrant rights to the right to even make healthcare choices. What is an action we can walk out of here today, we can all walk out of here today, and take that would actually have an impact? Angelica, we'll start with you.
Well, the first thing I would just want to say is the other thing that's different during this Trump administration is the scale of the attack. So again, I said, responded to raids and enforcement. On a daily basis, we have about an average of 90 actions happening throughout our region where people are being detained and arrested. The last number, I think, was 2 days ago, where we had actually had over 2,020 sightings of ICE in neighborhoods. And just to note that June to the present, and close to 800 enforcement actions throughout our region that we verify where people got arrested. So what can you do today? Today, you can become part of all, rapid response networks in your region. It matters a lot. We get to those areas to help our community between 10 and 15 minutes, to the point that ICE enforcement is doing this whole thing called burn and turn. They know we'll get there in 10 minutes, so they get in, snatch people, and try to get out of there between 4 and 7 minutes before we arrive. I mean, they are studying what we're doing, but we need you to be there, because the more people that can get there as quickly as possible, we will stay there. We'll talk to the families and individuals. So there's so many good people who become part of these volunteer networks, become part of the volunteer network here in this region. Los Angeles Rapid Response Network, we have trainings. We do things very, very, I would say we train, we do things in order to make sure that we can actually help the people who we're responding to. The other thing that I think is important for each one of you to remind is under an authoritarian government, you need to be public. Actually going out in the street, doing things collectively, doing exactly what you're doing right now is an act of resistance. So I invite you on October 4th, we're gonna be back in the streets. 10 o'clock, 6th Street Bridge in downtown Los Angeles. This is being done in unity with community-based organizations, with our very own Los Angeles Federation of Labor, many of the labor unions who are your sister labor unions, will be out there. Faith institutions, we're all marching. We're saying this is not acceptable, especially after October 1st, where $170 billion will be invested in enforcement, detention, deportation, and harm. We have to stand up. At the same time, they're cutting our health care, right? They're cutting all the safety net, but then putting those dollars into this horrible, atrocious, and again, immoral actions. So take to the streets. The other thing that you have to do is actually speak up. This is a time where a lot of people are getting scared and they're backing away and they're saying, I don't want to be in the storm. But let me tell you, it is raining. It's a hurricane. You gotta speak up. And remember, we come from generations of people in this country, Black, Indigenous, Asian, white, Latino, who have actually stood up against these kinds of people who are now in power. And we have made this country better and fairer and more just. And it's our turn. So take that and take action. Speak up, stand up, don't be afraid. It's a time for all of us to actually make all the people before us proud, because we are going to set the tone for a better country for all the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Lorena?
Well, Angelica said some of what I was going to say, but I'll put it a different way. So I'm going to give you 3 things you can do. And if you know me, you know I'm a mom on top of being kind of a bitch. And I say bitch in the best way. But sometimes people forget that part of me. But so this is going to sound hokey coming from me, but one thing you can do is love each other. I mean, seriously love each other. There's so much hatred in our world right now, and we know, the solidarity, the family, the community we built within labor, that's necessary. They want to break that. They want the bitterness. They thrive on the bitterness. So loving each other is really, really important. And telling people you love them, telling them they're not in isolation. I think that's really important. And I'm going to stretch it even further because this gets harder. Still love those people that made bad choices in the last election. Okay, that's hard, right? Because you want to be like, yeah. And we have a lot of union members. I talk about this a lot. We know this. Even in a good progressive union like NUHW, you guys know some of your coworkers voted for Trump. Or some of them still probably support him. But he lied to them, right? He said he's going to make the world safer, that he's going to care about workers. The things he said were lies. And we don't get them to our side by saying, you fucker. Like, how'd you believe that shit? I want to say that, but we have to allow them the space to have been wrong, to have been lied to. So that's really important. If we want to change people, that love is really important. And I'm sorry, because that's pretty hokey, but really, because I want to punch people in the face. But I'm not threatening to, I will not do it. But, we've got to love people. The second is, again, it's like speaking up, right? But not just speaking up in the streets and everything, that's super important, but also talking about the truth. What has scared me the most with this administration is what just happened with this whole Charlie Kirk thing. Political violence is never acceptable, ever. I will be the first to say I've been the target of political violence. It is not obviously death, and that is the ultimate. It is unacceptable. However, we cannot be forced to celebrate and appreciate and lift up racism and homophobia and things that we don't agree with. We cannot, misogyny, we cannot be forced to say that's okay. You cannot force me to stand up and honor somebody whose words were not honorable. And we have to continue to say that because they're trying to erase our voice and erase the truth. They're going to manipulate social media. They're going to try to manipulate real media. We saw it with Jimmy Kimmel, right? We fought back, he's back, that's good. But this is gonna continue to be an issue. So speaking the truth, getting to facts, and continuing to do that is gonna be super, super important as we move forward. And the third thing, because I'm a total opportunist and an organizer, we got these phone banks for Prop 30. And honestly though, one of our biggest problems, and I'm not gonna say Democrats save us, but sometimes they defend us. And in Congress, what we've seen is all of the Democrats have tried to defend some of it. All right, they're not aggressive enough on worker issues, if you ask me, and I would like a third party that was worker party. All the Republicans in California, I don't care how nice and gentle, Mr. Valadeo, they might have said they were gonna protect us on Medicaid. They might say they don't want everybody deported, but when it came down to it, they were lapdogs to President Trump, and they have caused the same harm he has by voting for it, and they're gonna continue to. So we have a simple opportunity right now. Do we create a situation where we can have people who protect us, who have guardrails to this tyrant who is in the White House? Do we have people who will at least tell him no when he wants to increase spending on ICE and to get rid of the NLRA and to do these things that are horrible? Or are we going to continue to allow him to have lapdogs like he has in Governor Abbott in Texas, who was willing to redraw their lines? No, we're going to fight back as well as we can. And we may not like every person in our congressional delegation, and we're going to have 5 more assholes. So, okay, you know, maybe not. There's one seat that might be good. But there are assholes. And I'm sorry, I'm really crude. There's no kids here, so. At the end of the day, they will provide those guardrails, and it is better to stop the bleeding. You all know that. You're healthcare professionals. We've got to stop this bleeding. So come out and phone bank for Prop 50. Let's make sure we win that, and then come back out to make sure that we're electing those congressional members.
Thank you. Thank you. Jane?
You all are already doing the work. I think the thing that we need to make sure that we are doing, and both Angelica and Lorena said, is that we need to make our work as public as possible. We need to role model courage for the rest of this country and show that there are people standing up. Because just as the despair that folks are feeling, the hopelessness that folks are feeling is contagious, so is courage and joy and love. And I can't emphasize this enough, they are also exhausted. I mean, their strategies and their tactics are horrible, and it's consuming to the soul, and it is a horrible and dark and very small place to be. And we have to be in opposition to that. We can't also be that as well, because that is when we lose. And that is what they're trying to seed in our communities. They're trying to seed their hate, their fear, their anxiety, their despair into our communities so that we just stand back and let it happen because we have lost hope. And so the only thing that can keep us in this fight is hope. And if we wake up every single day ready to fight again, we can't be losing. And as horrible as what we saw happen in LA with the ICE raids and with the National Guard, I also saw the most beautiful of our humanity in those moments. Seeing people come out just with an Instagram message to Home Depot in minutes, like just regular people coming out and putting out their phones and telling ICE to stop, it did slow them down. We didn't win the war yet, but we were saving pockets of individuals here and there. And for that individual that got to go home that day, that mattered a lot for that family. And for the individual that Mike was able to advocate for to get the medication and the representation that he needed, that mattered for that individual when he went home. And it reminds me, I remember we had an executive director of a homeless nonprofit retire after 40 years of serving in the homeless community. The San Francisco Chronicle asked him, "Aren't you so depressed? You've been doing this work for 40 years and nothing has changed. If anything, homelessness has just gotten worse on the streets." And his response was so beautiful. He said, "I don't view my work as just about ending homelessness. My work is to end homelessness in the lives of individuals." And I thought a lot about that story because I know all of us have that story. It's not about the savior complex, but for every person that we were able to find housing for every person that was able to get that care that they needed and got to, again, go home to their family and friends and then work that job that is serving our community at the grocery store, at the schools, that makes a huge difference. So we are also winning every single day in the work that we do. And we just have to amplify that role modeling for all of us so that all of us can stand together to fight against the few that are just so scared of all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, it's time for all of us now to have the opportunity to pose a question to our panelists. So as you will see, there are staff circulating around the room with microphones. If you would like to ask a question, please wave them down and they'll come over to you. We do want to be mindful of time, so let's make sure that the questions are under at least 3 minutes, because if not, we're not going to have any lunch. So, just saying. So yeah, I can't really see because the lights are blocking, but we got one. Okay.
Hi, my name's Stephanie. I'm a hospice nurse in Sacramento for Sutter. And yes, and I just want to say thank you for your time, your energy, and your inspiration. That's it. No question.
So I've got the next question. I'm Laura Nakamura. I'm a cardiac sonographer for Children's Hospital in the Walnut Creek location. And I'm also a Concord City Council member. And Jane, I heard your call loud and clear that if anyone in this room wants to run, they should consider it. How do they get a hold of you to talk more about that? What was the next step you want them to take?
Well, we run campaign camps across the country to help folks that don't have an infrastructure to run for office in their community. And so Michael Soto and myself are good starting points to start talking to us, because part of our work as the political party for working people is that we want to get that infrastructure, that knowledge, that know-how down to grassroots candidates to be able to run and to win. And so our party, because we're a party, we're not an advocacy organization, we're not a union, we're not a nonprofit service provider. As a party, we have tools that we have purchased to help and support our candidates, whether it's PDI, VAN, Scale to Win, and then we run campaigns all the time. You all run campaigns all the time. So we know, these are the formulas that you need to think about. Win numbers, looking at the maps, seeing how you're gonna door knock to get to the win. And then once you have won, it is part of all of our work to also support you in governing, right? Because, and I will tell you as someone who has served in office for 12 years, when you win, people are like, great, we did it. Now you can go and save the community. And then you go and, but I haven't changed. I didn't suddenly become this, informed, magical legislator overnight. And so part of our work is then to help you govern and to understand how the budget works, understand how land use works, and how the control of land for our people is so important. And so that's how we can do it. Come find me or Michael if you are interested. If everyone in this room ran for office, imagine what California would look like if we governed.
Thank you, Jane.
Hi, my name is Shader, and I'm from Sacramento Behavioral Healthcare Hospital in Sacramento. I guess in this climate right now, my question is always, why do we lower the standard for certain people while raising the standard for others, but yet accountability is not a real thing?
Well, look, preaching to the choir, and accountability is something that we have got to push. We're in a unique time, right? And so when I started phone banking for Prop 50, I got a lot of these kind of questions, like, how are we just accepting this? The Democratic Party isn't giving us what we need. And I agree. Those of you who know me, I mean, sometimes I have to say, Sal, can you call the governor? He's not talking to me anymore. But we are in a unique situation now where we have to hold on for our lives. But as we rebuild, I will say this. If the MAGA Republicans and Trump has taught us anything, it's taught us that the Democratic Party was not nearly aggressive enough for us. And that every time they told us they couldn't do something because that's not how things worked, clearly they were wrong and they didn't try. Since I started in the labor movement, some of you probably are been around for a while. Anybody remember the Employee Free Choice Act? No? So under Obama, right? That's all we want. We want federal labor law reform so we can have card check everywhere, so we can have a chance to unionize, so we can have the chance for a first contract. Yeah, just wait a little bit longer. Just wait a little bit longer. First, we're gonna do this. And healthcare was important. First, we're gonna do this. Then we're gonna work on Dreamers, and then we're gonna do this. We never get to working people's issues because our issues are the hardest, because you have to take a stand against corporations. I always said, and I served in the legislature for 9 years, and I said, oh yeah, it's, no offense, but charity's easy for Democrats, right? They're not fighting anyone but a checkbook, and sometimes they'll just say, oh, sure, we'll do that. Charity's easy. Empowerment, when they have to take on the corporate class, when they have to take on the moneyed class, that's the hard point. So I think as we get through this, that is the question I want you to continue to ask. Why do we have different standards? Why are we acquiescing? And why are we not holding people accountable? Because I can be a voice for all of you, and I will continue to do that, but I need all of you to do that at every level, and not just sit there and take a picture with an elected official because they're there and you're like, oh, it's okay, they did okay. No, they fucking didn't do okay, and you should call them out on that shit. And, I used to say when I was there, if I did something wrong, do that to me. Like, do it to me. But I was a perfect legislator. For working people, I was. I mean, there wasn't, I'm sorry. I'll hold that up to anyone. But we have got to start to do that. Don't be enamored. They're just people. And if you don't say it to them, they think I'm just being difficult. They don't think it's coming from you. So I need you. We need you. We need your voices.
Can I add one more thing, which I have? Oh, you were amazing. I love her. I'm such a fangirl of her, because I love that she's so tough. And we have to be tough for our people. And she models that, and she gets shit done, which is what I love. And we got some of the best legislation for immigrants during your tenure, so thank you. But just one more thing. Okay, our government, how does it work? Everybody talks about the judicial, the executive, and the legislative, all those three branches. They forget the fourth one and the most important one, which is the people. You can't have a democracy without people organized. And so to your point, this is a moment to show our power and to force every single one of those branches to do what we need. And it's not gonna be about, it is, of course we want these elected officials to do what's right, but they're only gonna do right if we're empowered. We, the people. That is how we're formed. And this is a moment for us to show the real power we have. And accountability comes when any of these elected officials say, man, if I don't do the right thing, the people, my constituents, the people, they're going to come back at me and they're not just going to let me get away with it. So it's really important that this time our civil society really show up to force this country not just to get over Trump, but to be something different, something better for people of color and for working people in this country who have gotten they just have gotten the worst deal. There is no reason people should work 2, 3 jobs in order to be able to afford a home, that we have so many homeless people in the streets. There's something seriously wrong, and we have to activate in order to really transform this country to what it has to be for us.
All right. Thank you. Do we have anyone else? That's it? Oh, one more.
Hi there. My name is Tiesa Meshkis. I work in Santa Rosa at Providence, Santa Rosa Memorial. I'm a CNA, med-surg orthopedics. I also had the honor of serving for 2 years on city council in the city of Aberdeen, Washington. And one of the things about my election was it came down to 12 votes. That's how many votes there were between me and my opponent. And a lot of that was voter turnout. And that I think we had 30% voter turnout from our area. And, you know, we see, commercials, we see other people talking about, encouraging people to come out and vote. And so many of, especially our younger people, between ages of 18 and 25, they just don't feel like their vote makes a difference. So how can we, older people especially, really reach out to our younger population to encourage them and say, yes, your vote does make a difference. What other resources can we pull upon to, get them more involved in this process?
Well, I think it's important to remember something in California, and that's every one of those young people are going to get a ballot in the mail. We changed the law to ensure that every single voter gets a ballot 30 days before the election. They can fill it out at their house, wherever they want, and slip it back in the mail. We worked on these largely because of young people. I mean, I remember my daughter asking me like, oh, I got this vote by mail, but where do I find a stamp? And so we wrote a bill to make it free. You just put it back in the mail. My daughter's now 29. She knows where to find a stamp, thank God. And she votes every time. But some of it is making it as accessible as possible. And we are right now on the college campus as they come back trying to get them to vote for Prop 50, which is a really hard ask, right? You're being motivated by a proposition. But we got to speak their language. It is about fighting Trump. It is about punching him in the nose. That's what we're doing here. They want to do that. They're angry, right? And no matter what issue it is and finding out what drives them, maybe it's LGBTQ issues, maybe it's immigration issues, maybe it's choice issues, maybe it's worker issues, maybe it's homeless issues, maybe it's not having enough food, maybe it's not being able to pay the rent, whatever issue, maybe it's educational loans. There are so many issues. We have to see what will motivate them one by one by one. We're organizers. We know how this works. The TV's not going to do it. The mail, not going to do it. The conversations is what does it. And we have to do that in this election and every other one that comes. We're trying something new. You guys may get this because it's going to union members. And it's like a very simple question on Prop 50. And you're going to complain or you're going to vote? Which one is it going to be? Because we know everybody's complaining. And so those conversations, that individual conversation, I'm going to challenge you. I am going to challenge you. You all know a handful of young people. You do. You may not think you do. Maybe they do your nails, maybe check you out at the grocery store, maybe they're your children or your nieces or nephews. Check in with them. Ask them if they turned in the ballot. Walk them through it. Ask them again. That's how we get young people to vote. One by one by one. You know how to do it. We know how to do it, and we have to do it.
So I will add to that, and that is to give voters a choice. I can't tell you how many times, I haven't missed an election cycle to door knock since 2010. I go door knocking every election season, and I love it, because that is the best poll you're ever gonna get, is talking to folks where they're at and hearing and listening as to what they're thinking about the election in front of you. Now, Zoran Mandani did something that we've been talking about for a very, very long time, but we haven't yet proven that we can do that, which is that if you actually speak to the issues that people care about, free buses, freeze the rent, that they might actually come out and vote for you, right? We had more young people under 35 vote than every other age group in New York City this past June. That has never happened. That rarely happens. And so I know we sometimes, like Lauren said, want to punch that person that voted for Trump, or we always say, oh, those uneducated people that voted against their economic interests. But I actually don't think that most Americans are that dumb. I really don't. I mean, even when I talked to voters that were telling me that they were gonna vote for a Working Families Party candidate at the city council, and they were considering voting for Trump in the White House, you know, a lot of the reasons folks gave me, because our folks were women, people of color, like they weren't the hardcore MAGA voters. But they were just like, I just don't like what's happening right now. And I don't have the time to do research. I don't know if tariffs are gonna make my life better. I don't even know if deportations will make my life better. But he had some ideas, and so I'm gonna give him a shot. And I don't actually know what the Democratic Party stands for. I heard that so many times. And by the way, I'm not against the Democratic Party, right? And the Working Families Party, people say, are you against the Democratic Party, or are you trying to work within the party? And my answer is both. We're trying to win. So sometimes that means we're gonna work within the Democratic Party and push them to be more accountable to all of us. And sometimes that means we're gonna challenge the Democratic Party and say that's not good enough. And so again, it comes down to providing some real options, because some folks felt like they didn't have a real option in the presidential election last year. Whatever our views of Harris and Trump are, some people really felt that neither of those candidates were gonna fight for them. And I'm not sure that they were completely wrong about that, right? So that's why I come back to us. We need you to run for school board, for city council, for state legislature, because when you give folks the options, when you say, I don't make millions of dollars, I can't avoid the failures of policy and the people that have been failed. I serve them. When people see you run and they see the work that you've done and what Mike has done to fight for his neighbor in the hospital, that's gonna get them to come out and vote for you and to participate in the election and show that there are real people that are willing to stand up and fight because they have seen you fight. Healthcare workers, we all see how you fight for us. So when you decide to run, I mean, I think folks are gonna come out and vote.
I have an assignment for you. So often we think that getting out the vote it's other people, and it's us. So I work with people who don't have the right to vote because they're undocumented. Yet the vote makes a huge difference. So what do? They're like, how we have this, the way we operate at Cheerla is like every single person can actually, and Cheerla Action Fund, every single person can actually find voters and motivate them, even if you can't, by telling your story and why it's important that they participate. If each one of us here had 10 people, just 10 people, your vote counts. So now you find 9 more people that you say, I'm gonna make sure that those 9 people vote. And it's in your workplace, it's in the, at church, it's, in any, who you relate to. That's what democracy is also about. And yes, we'll have, a lot of the get out the vote campaigns, which we have to do and everything else. But see, each one of you can have a mini campaign, your own personal campaign. And if you got to 10, then get to 20. but you know the people. You know these folks better than anybody else. So I ask you, I implore you, yes on 50, get 10 people to vote for yes on 50. And that's how we build a democracy in this country. One person at a time. That's what I learned. I was getting out the vote before I could cast my own. So let's do this, and let's really take this seriously, because nobody's gonna save us, we're gonna save us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, as sad as it is to say, we have reached the end of our panel. On behalf of all of us here, thank you for all of the energy and wisdom that you brought to this discussion. We will forever be grateful for all the work that you three do. We're honored and inspired to be part of this movement alongside you. So, as the panelists are standing and exiting the stage, can we give them one more round of applause? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. By the way, your skin is I kept staring at it. Thank you for being here. Oh, thank you. I need to talk to you about that.
All right, everyone. Well, that was incredible. I don't feel like I deserve to be on the same stage as them, but so now we're gonna do some table discussions. We're gonna have about half an hour to reflect, connect with one another, and come up with concrete steps of how we can take this information into our lives, into our workplaces. And even though this is a group discussion, there will be worksheets on your table. These are individual worksheets, and so we do want you to work on them individually. They are gonna be collected at the end, they'll be scanned, and they'll be distributed to your reps so that you can bring it back to your steward council meetings to discuss. 15 minutes, okay. We're only doing 15 minutes, so figure out how to save the world in 15 minutes, please. So the questions are, so we've got 2 questions to kind of frame your discussions. Part of our job as stewards and workplace leaders is to take what is discussed at this conference back to our members. What stories or strategies have you heard today that you commit to take back to your steward councils, your bargaining teams, or union members? And then question number 2, what are you as an individual committed to doing in your workplace, in steward councils, and in your community, and how do we keep each other safe? You got 15 minutes.